we're going to just kind of roll into this one. We have Josh Scott joining us, not Josh Smith. That was a typo on my end. How's everything going, man?
Everything's going good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's Texas weather right now. We don't have to worry about the rain, none of that stuff. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying life.
Just got to
So,
worry about, just the border.
yep. So,
That's it. That's
uh,
the biggest worry.
yeah. Luckily, the border's several hours south of me, and it's not an immediate worry, but it's always a worry. So,
Yeah,
but
Texas hot there right now. Is it weather hot there, or is it like
it,
Arizona?
it's it's not. See, so I lived out in New Mexico for a few years, and I like that kind of weather out there where it's like that dry heat. Here in New
Yeah,
Mexico, it's hot, but it's like there's humidity to it, and I don't like it. You know,
yeah. It's
it's
it's hard if you're used to the heat. I'm born and raised in here in Arizona, so I'm used to dry heat in 115, 116. It's just like I've lived through it. So every time I go to Nashville, I mean, I've been in Nashville. I usually go 3 or 4 times a year, and usually it's like in the summer. And every time I've gone, except for this last time, I was down there about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, recording, and it was raining the first 2 days, so it was just beautiful. I went to the Grand Ole Opry on Tuesday night, and got to go, backstage and stuff, and so it was this amazing experience. And the whole time it was good until like the day I left on the plane, and like you could tell that humidity there is like it's just, I mean, it's sickening. It's really bad. It's really
yeah,
bad. So I
it
get it.
is. It is. So you were born and raised Arizona, been there your entire life?
Yeah, born and raised. I was born in Tucson at VA hospital, and I've been around Arizona and grew up in this place, kind of just for my entire life. So
That's
yeah, get
cool.
out and seen a lot of different places, but yeah, this is home now, and I've this last year I've kind of got up towards Prescott, where the weather's a little bit cooler. It's a little town called Congress outside of
Mhm.
Wickenburg, and it's just a hole in the wall town, but it's about 10 or 12 degrees cooler than the valley all the time, and then just kind of just different, a whole different scenery from like the desert landscape that I've been around my whole life, so I'm enjoying it out here.
Nice. That's really cool. That's really cool. And so where does music kind of come into play? Was your family musical or did you kind of find that on your own?
No, man, my story is really, really crazy. It's just, so it's, my mom was a bartender. My dad ran bars and restaurants. And so I just grew up in a bar. I grew up playing pool and watching, like being pretty much like my mom didn't have a babysitter. My dad went to work. I just go to the bar, so I was, watching these guys play Captain Crew and, play pool and gamble. And, there was a jukebox always playing. So, I think the first time I remember hearing a song, it was like 1982. And I was 4 years old, I think, at that time, 4 or 5. And I just remember Unwound came on, by George Strait. And I think my dad played Seven Spanish Angels. The jukebox was just playing these songs that I still to today just love to death. So I remember like the first time I got to like really hear like a jukebox and like country music. And it was just a bunch of, I've loved it ever since. So that's how I got into it. And then I just, I was a basketball player throughout high school and I played some college basketball. And after that, I got in some trouble. And, just had different jobs. And I didn't really find music until like I was 35. Really, it was really weird. I went out and sang karaoke one night, and I've always sang, in the shower and around. I mean, but then the lady that owned the bar said, "Hey, would you just come host karaoke every 2 days a week here, and we'll pay you." A couple $100 a night just to sing and just to, call people up here. And I was like, sure. And so that turned into like, like doing it 7 days a week. Like I was just hosting karaoke just everywhere, 7 nights a week. And then a band had come up and said, "Hey, we'll front you if, if we can't get no jobs." And it was like a band called the Crossroads, and it was all like a bunch of older Mexican guys. And they played like classic rock, but they learned some country songs. And shit, all the places it was letting me do like the karaoke, they now let me come in there and play with the live band. And, they learned enough songs where we could do a couple hour show. And then I was all of a sudden in Vegas and had a little stay at the Golden Nugget 3 nights a week, man, making more money than I deserved to sing cover songs. And then I did that for about 6 months, and then that led to prison. I was prison, I got just that shit ate me up. I lived on Fremont Street for probably about 6 months straight inside the Nugget, and never made it further than the Walgreens. I'd go down there get chew and new shirts and deodorant and shit. And I thought I was a rock star, but like and nobody knew who the hell I was. As people coming in to gamble and walking by, and it was just I thought I was something that I wasn't, and just a bunch of mistakes that came with like just jumping into being a musician all of a sudden, and just like from never doing it. It's like you think you're a rock star, and it just turned into a little bit in prison, not a little one, but 8 years in prison, and lost my mom, my dad, my brother OD was in there. Pretty much lost everyone, but my wife and children, and then I came home and I just basically just in prison. I prayed and I wrote, but I wasn't thinking about music. I just prayed, God give me just another chance to be a good dad, just another opportunity to be a good father, and please look after them and not let them happen to them while I was gone, because of all the stuff that happened, like with my mom and dad. I just, it was a tough stretch as a parent in there. You ain't got no control over the safety of your children, so, God blessed me with all those things. I came home in 2019. I was driving a dump truck and, just rebuilding a relationship with my family. And I was just working with my daughter. She was going into her sophomore year in high school. She's about 6'2", loved basketball, but I missed a big part of her life, although we talked every day. And, the coaches and some of the staffs at the school seen me working, with the girls and saw that I could play basketball. And they said, "Hey, why don't you coach?" And I said, "Well, they didn't know me coach. I just did 8 years in prison. I got a bunch of felonies on the record." And they said, "Well, let's try." So I went through all these things with HR, and just a miracle though. I became head coach of coach of my daughter's basketball team, and got to coach it for 3 years with all these other girls. And God allowed me to go do that after where I was at, and through that process, we were hanging out a lot. And one night she'd asked me while we were eating in Phoenix. She said, "Hey, you're just gonna drive a dump truck and just coach, like I know you." She's like, "I know you're not going to coach after I graduated. So you're going to just leave music and just say goodbye to it." And that night we were sitting right there, and I just, Ray Herndon has always been like a hero of mine from being from Arizona. He's wrote "Me and You" for Kenny Chesney. He wrote, they wrote the big one of the big ones for Jason Aldean. He's written 7 or 8 number ones. He was 1996 CMA Artist of the Year, so he's like a big deal out here in Arizona. And at the time, he was playing for Lyle Lovett's band. He was playing guitar for Lyle Lovett. And so I Googled him, and he happened to be playing that night at the Handlebar J. And this was, very early 2020. And I said, "Hey, let's just go over there. Let's just drive there right now. And I'll just ask him if he'd listen to my stuff, just tell him I'm a fan of this." So we did. And, they're pretty much everybody laughing at, my brother and my brother and his sister and his wife. And then my family, we just went over there, and I went and tapped Ray Herndon on the shoulder. I seen him standing over there, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Herndon," I said, "I'm a fan of all the stuff you've done." I said, "I think you've done it with class, and you have a real nice career." And I said, "I got some songs. Would you listen?" And he said, "Can you sing?" I said, "Hell, I don't know. I used to be able to sing." And so he got me up on stage with him that night, man. I've been for prison, and I had, not sang at all or done anything to like singing with Ray Herndon. And I got up and did 7 or 8 songs with him, and like he just, a bunch of old Hank, a bunch of old stuff. And yeah, it was, the crowd loved it. He seemed to be impressed. And then after he was done with the show, he said, "Well, send me those songs and I'll listen to them."
Nice.
And so I, what I didn't tell him is that I don't play an instrument, and I just had the songs in my head, so I didn't have no way to get them to him. And he's like, "Well, I guess just sing them into my voicemail, And I thought, fuck, this is not going to work out great. I'm like, so I said, "All right, sir," got his number, and I left. And so I just sang all the songs best I could, over and over, trying to get them right into this voicemail and send them to him. And I sent him 5 or 6 of the songs I thought were pretty good that I'd written over the last 8 years. And I didn't call for a few weeks. One day I'm driving a dump truck, and about 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and Ray Herndon pops up on my phone. He's like, "Hey, listen," he's like, "one thing I know is good songs." He's like, "These are all good songs." He's like, "Why don't you come over to my house and, we'll work them out." And I was like, "When?" He's like, "Whenever you can." So, I went straight from my work with a load of gravel in the back, didn't deliver it, just drove to Scottsdale, drove up in a dump truck and get out in a work shirt and everything. And he's like, "Damn, that was quick." I was like, "Yeah, it was in the neighborhood, So, we sat down, and, he grabbed his guitar, and he listened to, the way that I'd sung him and what, So it was interesting that first time, because I had to get out, because I can hear the whole song in my head. From the fiddle to the steel to, everything, the bridges and everything. I could hear him perfectly, but I didn't know what key anything was in. I didn't know how to make him understand it. So I had to kind of air guitar it out of my mouth, and he'd pick it up a little bit and start playing. I was like, yeah, like that. And then we just, I mean, I started hearing my songs come to life just on an acoustic guitar in his living room. Uh, it was amazing. It was amazing that it's like a dream. You know, I didn't know if I'd ever get it out of my head. And so I thought maybe that might be as far as it go. And I just get to record some with Ray Herndon, and, we're going to make an album, So he told me he thought they were good, and he wanted to be a songwriter on them. And we'd go down and, we'd record with all his people he knows. And it was just, that's how it started. So that's where it started. And that was the beginning right there.
Nice. That's one hell. Like, there's so much to jump in throughout that story where
Yeah.
it's like,
It gets crazier.
right. It's such a cool story. It's a unique story.
It's a
It's
fairy tale.
yeah. It's like the one thing that caught me is you were talking about. I'll try not to sit too long on this one, but you were talking about how after you came out of prison, you were trying to rebuild the relationship with your daughter, and they asked you to be the basketball coach and whatnot. I that just for that spoke to me because I feel like that stigma of coming out of prison is kind of starting to go away.
Yeah,
Of like,
I think so.
yeah, as more people are starting to come out of the prison system and show that okay, not everybody that comes out is going to reoffend. Yes, you're going to have that situation,
Right.
but there are people that go in and learn their lesson or change their life or like however you want to word it and come out and it's like better people
Yeah, I
or
think
in a yeah.
some of the most successful people that I know out here right now are guys that I did that stretch with, man. That I kind of hung out with the middle along the way. Like I got a buddy, Mark Pass, and like he got out before me, and he owns like 3 or 4 landscape businesses, and I mean 7 or 8 long haul trucking, and he's got just a beautiful family. And these guys have, they know what it's like to be without anything and not to be able to go outside and look at the stars in the air. So like the guys who figure it out and like come home and work their ass off, and they attack their goals. They know what it's like to be without for a long stretch of time and what hard shit's really like. So I think it's either you're going to do really really good, or you're gonna say, well, I was in prison, so I can't get a job. Feel sorry for yourself and all that stuff. So I think there's 2 ways you can go on it, and it's like that's up to you to decide kind of what you're going to do. So
For sure, for sure. So, and then jumping into, the encounter with just kind of the opportunity to show what you can do as a musician. Um, and or how does that kind of end up playing out? Like, obviously, you start working together, but how
yeah,
did
yeah.
you end up?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
we started recording the first album, and I started recording. He started using the guys in his band, like Mike Smith, who played for the Oak Ridge Boys, and he just played for everybody. He's an older guy, he lives out here in Arizona, and he still plays today. Um, so he was my steel player, and I a bunch of just awesome guys. Gary Bruzy, who was Glenn Campbell's drummer for 15 years, played the drums and play shows with me now. Those are the guys that I got from him. I was just like insane. So I started just hearing these songs come to life, and like they had me singing them, and they had me re-singing them, and telling me like how to do this and how to do that. So that first stretch in the studio was really really hard because I was in there with guys who were all pros who have made albums, and won awards and Grammys, and I was in there just like more as a fan than I was. I didn't feel like I belonged in there, so it was like I was more intimidated and really uncomfortable too because they could all sing really good too, and they know how to sing in pocket and pitch and what key they were in, and when they did harmonies, they could sing differently. It was just like so strange to me that all this stuff came to music. Like it was so beautiful to watch it, but like so many dimensions. It's not like you just sing a song. I mean, like to get to this spot, you change keys, you got to bridge, you got to, he's the way you play it and the way out. There's so many different moving parts, and I was so enamored by the whole process of the thing. Couldn't even believe I was there. It took me a while to get comfortable to where I didn't have to I wasn't the guy holding everybody back, even though it was my stuff. And so that's how that started. But we ended up getting, we got 5 really good songs. We thought were really good songs. And Ray told me, he's like, well, I think these songs are good. He's like, I think you should, you got to start getting out there and playing now, and just, just hitting the streets now. It's like, this is going to be the hard part, So I said, all right, so I started doing just little gigs, wherever they'd have me. I started playing the album that I had, the songs we made. We hadn't had the album yet. Chuck Ainley, which was George Strait's engineer and producer, Dolly. I mean, so he mixed and mastered my song and stuff and produced it. And he tells Ray after about 3 weeks of me playing it, I'm just playing it like anywhere I can play it at that moment. And he tells Ray, he's like, hey, this kid Josh is not a kid, but he called me a kid, and he said, hey, if he wants to be in the country music business, he's like, he can. He's like, he definitely can. He's got the voice, and he said he can write. He's like, so he's like, tell him I said good luck. And so that was my relationship with him just hearing that, So I was like, I'm just gonna start grinding, And so I seen that Tracy Lawrence was opening for, or not opening. He had a show in Wickenburg,
Mm-hmm.
and I started sending my songs. I started sending videos. I never got an answer. She wouldn't answer me, and so hell, there's about 2 hours time from where I was at. So I just drove out there one day and knocked on this door, and I said, "Hey, are you Angie?" And I'm 6'8". She was about 4'10". She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm Josh Scott." I said, "Yeah, I've been sending you my stuff. Have you listened to it?" And she's like, "No." I said, "Well, can we right now?" And so she listened to it, and then we went on a ride in the golf cart, and she hired me to open back-to-back nights for Tracy Lawrence, and then I got to open for Mark Chestnut after that, and I mean, played with Lainey Wilson, and just all that just spun into like, I Tracy Lawrence 2 nights, and then I opened for Mark Chestnut, and I was hanging out with Mark on the way out. He did a New Year's show, and talking to him, I just told him how much I love. I'll think of something. I told him one of my favorite songs of all time. I was watching him from the side after I opened for him, and he's about a fourth or fifth song, and he looks over at me and he says, "Hey, Josh," he's like, "come up here and sing this with me." I was like, "No way, no way." It was totally just, and I got it on video. So I go up there, man, and I hear that intro, and it's just like with his guys, and so I'm like, holy cow. So I did that, and it's just like, I think all that little just luck, just super lucky, the right situation, and actually, going and not just taking no for an answer because she didn't read them, that going out to that venue and talking to her and getting that chance. And so I did that. And then, like just, whoever was paying attention from that kind of started following me, and my social media started growing, and more people started coming to these shows. And then other people started calling me to want to pay me more money. And I was like, well, hell, this is kind of cool, And uh, started working, and I started just, I went to play the Nashville Palace with Ray one night. We went there for a show. It was like Keith Whitley, his son was there, and
Mm-hmm.
Lauren Morgan, Daryl Worley, a bunch of old timers. But I met Daryl there and just hit it off good with him for some reason. He came out to Arizona and did a show with me. Did a show with me out here. We, did our own little show and for the veterans and sold tickets. So became friends with Daryl Worley, and just a crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And about that time, this time was like my really popular song. We thought it was going to be just kind of like it's kind of like it's my anthem. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I wrote it from solitary confinement, and I just this time, and I hope in prison you hear everybody say, if you're in a conversation listening to grown men speak in prison, and probably women too, when wherever they're at, it's everybody's like, this time I'm going to be a good dad. This time I'm going to be a better father. I'm going to be a better husband. This time I'm going to be a better son. I'm going to treat my parents better. I'm going to be a better friend. It's this time. It's this time. So as a song was this time, just like it was had like a million streams in the first, 3 weeks, I think. And I was like, holy cow, it's crazy. Because no one knew who I was, but I had Ray Herndon, I had Stuart Duncan, maybe the best fiddle player ever on my stuff. He played on the album. Uh, um, another guy, I can't think of his name right now, Matt Rollins. He's a piano player in Nashville. Just Grammy after Grammy. Chuck Ainlay produced it. So I had all these guys that were on it that was just their name alone on it. People just wouldn't listen to it sometimes. So I got on some playlists, and yeah, it was cool. And so I started making money and actually just doing it for a living. And it was like, I got my family out of we moved to a better home, and
Nice.
things were going well. And then one night I'm laying in bed, and somebody sent me just a link that said, Battle of the Bar Bands, Song of the Year competition. And it was sponsored by Jack Daniels and iHeartRadio. And so I had a song I wrote called That Bottle, and I wrote it about a bottle of whiskey and a woman. So I was like, well, hell, it was like the last night. So I just submitted it. I just submitted the song and just didn't think nothing of it. Like about 3 weeks later, I got a check in the mail from KNIX and said, come to the studio and meet, Tim Hattrick and Barrel Boy. And I was like, what the fuck is it? What is this? I didn't even know that. I wasn't expecting that. So I actually won my region without even knowing I was even like, didn't think nothing of it. So I won my region. And then my song went up nationally against, that there's thousands of other songs across country for Song of the
Hmm.
Year. It went to a vote, I had to get a fan vote. So I was like, well, hell, now I got a chance to like win Song of the Year. So like I really started beating the pavement. I started going to Montana, doing shows at just out of state, getting to local radio stations. And somehow, man, by the grace of God, my song won by like thousands and thousands of votes. I got iHeart Song of the Year with Jack Daniels, and was supposed to go play at the iHeart Music Awards and do some stuff with Jack Daniels, and then COVID just shut down everything. It's like
Yep.
COVID shut down, and they wanted me to get a vaccine, to be able to play and Ray, and I know he didn't want to. I sure didn't want to, and so we didn't. So I didn't get to do that. I didn't get to do the national anthem Christmas Day at Cardinal Stadium, which was part of
Mm.
the deal. So everything basically that I had to come along with that, I didn't get the opportunity to do, and it was just bad timing. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knew how to handle COVID. I blame, I've been like the last, few years, I blame like iHeart and, for making me do that, or I blame, this and that. But like I've learned now, like in the beginning, no one really knew, like it was super bad, if we're all going to die, what to do. So it's like everybody was just trying to figure it out, and they were following these protocols that, even though we know they're dumb now,
Hmm.
at that point, it's like they had to do it. And I just kind of felt cheated for the longest time, and uh, so that's how that happened. Um, yeah, and then once I didn't get that, and I was in a show one night, and Carrie Lake shows up in the audience, and she's getting ready to run for governor, and she's like, "I just wrote the song. Ray and I wrote the song in Nashville with Jeff King and a bunch of other guys, and Moose, the guy 5 o'clock somewhere, Jim Moose Brown, and they were on my album. We made some new songs, and it's called Redneck Enough to Be Dangerous. I kind of just wrote it about how I was feeling about how I got done, and Carrie Lake come to a show, and she came up and said she liked the song. I drank a beer with Carrie Lake and her husband, and then I was on her campaign trail, man. I was singing, walking side by side with Carrie Lake, basically her whole campaign trail. Sheriff Lamb, became my friends. These are guys I used to run from and shit, like I was.
Yeah.
So my life was just a whirlwind, man. I was like from this to that to not having it to Carrie Lake and doing all the events with her, and like just seeing how the whole thing is going in the politics and music. It was just nuts. So that was about a span of her running for governor,
Yeah.
and we thought she was going to win, and we had plans together, her marching out to Redneck Enough to Be Dangerous, made a music video actually that we didn't even release. Somehow it's on YouTube. It's her, she's in it with Sheriff Lamb, and it's we were supposed to release that when she won. She lost, and so when she lost, it was like, well, shit, what do we do now? And I was kind of planning on some of that, and yeah, so it was a lot of like, a lot of really close calls, and then so I just went back to the grind. Um, about 8 months ago, 9 months ago. I'm just playing. I'm out in Montana, I think, and I get a package at my house in Arizona. It's from Jack Daniels, and they're like, "Hey, I want you to come out to Camp Jack, and we'll make it up to you." They'd sent me shirts and different boozes and all kinds of cool
Hmm.
little gift packs. And so I
Nice.
thought, wow, yeah, I thought, wow, this might be cool, And they sent me out, and they sent me down to a place downtown. I forget the name of the place in Nashville. Put me in a real nice hotel, and they came and picked me up, and I went out to actual Lynchburg and had me my own Airstream. It said Josh Scott on it, and I was just like, wow, this is pretty fancy treatment,
Nice.
because they were talking about, like, I had the representative I had out here. He was talking about, he's like, hey, they really like the song. It's cool. It's called That Bottle. It's like it's branding well, and I was like, yeah, I hope so. So there was a lot of high hopes, and then they disappeared too when COVID happened. Just didn't hear from them until now. So yeah, so I got there, and it was really cool. They were treating me really good, and I had a it's something I can't talk about a whole lot. It's
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to really do something special with them, and there was also like the first night I just thought it was just me, and it was just going to be me and my song, and so I'd seen the contract, and I was ecstatic. I called Ray, and I cried. I called my daughter; she's ready to go to college. I cried. I told my son, I called some close friends. And that first whole night in my mind, I was gonna somehow be branding with Jack Daniels. My life would change, and very few artists get to do that.
Hmm.
From where I was at, it was special. And find out the next day is like I just couldn't say yes to what they were doing. And to have it in your hands and to be that, like, feel like to own it for that long, for a day, and then to, like, have to figure out, like, to move on from it. It was tough. So I talked to Ray about it, and we agreed that it was it's not a good idea for me. And so after that, man, I got depressed. My daughter gone to Baltimore, Maryland, to play basketball, and so she was like my best friend, and she was gone, and I just was wondering why, like, I get to these spots, like God
Mm.
would put me in these great positions, but it would be like a decision I'd have to make that was like, either interfere with my values or not be proud of something,
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, I got depressed, man. I just basically I quit. I just quit. I quit. I just quit doing music. I canceled all my shows and sat around and went through a messy separate. I mean, just really the last year of my life has been it's been tough, So I went through a messy separation, and about 6 months I just stopped and went to church one night, and on a Tuesday, Scottsdale Trinity Church. Uh, One of the business partners I have, and that really supports me and has supported me through the whole journey, is she's just like trying to make me go to church, and I just did for whatever. This place in Trinity had this big, huge production for music. And make a long story short, I started going to men's night. And then they asked me to come up and lead the men in worship one night and sing some songs, tell my story. And I got to do it inside the church, which was just magnificent and like beautiful. And then I wrote this song called "Pray," and everything started going again. Everything started flying over again. I've got a new album coming out with Jeff King and a bunch of guys in Nashville, and "Pray" is going to be, the main song, probably, the single that we released first. And the Martin Luther King choir is in it. It's just
Yes.
really crazy. It went from some of the people that are on it. It's really nuts. I can't. We're doing it right now, but that's kind of like where I'm at right now. So I found some opportunity, man, to get after music again. And all the times that God got me through stuff, once again He figured out a way to pick me up and dust me off and send me in the right direction. So I'm still just trying, man. That's all I'm doing
Yeah.
is trying. So
I feel that. I feel that. It's this story. It just kind of the 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 antithesis or whatever word you want to use, that skill wins out, and as long as you have your convictions and you stick to your guns, everything will end up all right in the end, as long as you don't
yeah,
compromise who you are. Like I
yeah,
that
yeah.
that's kind of what I've taken away from your story, because it's like, you know, obviously your skill takes you so far, and it seems to have done really well. It's given you a lot of opportunities, but then at the end of the day, if the opportunity is not right, you don't necessarily have to take it, and it'll lead to something
Yeah.
else, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's even though throughout this journey, sometimes I've I wish I was better than that, where I didn't use excuses and use the reasons why maybe I'm in a certain spot or why things could be better if So I did that for a while, and
Mhm.
sometimes I still catch myself wondering what might have been. But you know what? If all that stuff would have been perfect, I wouldn't have been able to meet Carrie Lake and all the people that I met throughout her, and Sheriff Lamb, which are really, really great individuals, and all the things that I'm doing right now would be a completely different path. And I just got to believe, the walk I'm walking, man, is it's where God wants me, and it's like maybe I can carry a little more on my shoulders to some people, so I get a little extra. And the things I've gone through have made me who I am today. And if I wouldn't have gone through all that stuff, yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am. I think I needed all the stuff that has happened to me in order to become better, because like, I'm a stubborn, prideful man. So I don't always learn things the first time or the easy way, so it's just been my journey, man. I'm walking it, and I'm hoping that, my dream is just 20, 30 years from now, man, have a song that people are still listening to. That's all I want to do. That's really all I want to do. I want to just have a song people listen to down the road in 30 years that they can leave behind. That's be part of country music for the rest of my life. That would be my goal, man, is to be a part of it, a small part of the country music world. To leave one behind would be pretty neat.
That's sick. I love that. So you'd mentioned that you got a new project that'll be coming out, and you're currently like working on it. Do you have like a timeline as like how soon you want to start getting that out, or is it still pretty far off?
No, I mean it's been a really patient process, this one, and patience. I've never really had a lot of it since I've learned to build a studio where I'm able to kind of work out here in Congress along with Jeff King in Nashville and Ray. Through just through I've learned now with technology and things that I didn't know 5 years, 4 years ago, where now I can create what I need them to hear without all the craziness. And I can create a file, and I can build my own guitar track around what I'm doing with the
Yeah,
bridges and keys and send it to them. And then they can go off of that. And then by the time I go to Nashville, we're just going to the vocals and, maybe just make sure we're good. So, I was just there, and we've got five of them, pretty close to being done, and I think that we're probably January 25 is probably going to be when we start pushing out new music and stuff. So I think we got a little church tour we're going to be doing to some bigger churches, with the song "Pray" and some really just cool stuff. I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited for people to hear these new songs. I wrote a song called "Baptize and Bury Me" that I think is just it's mean and it's tough, but it's a cool story. So I just got it's a different kind of it's a classic country. Everything's got a fiddle and a steel guitar in it, and but it's a little. So I think it's a little more current than the stuff maybe I did the first time. It all kind of sounded. My first album was sound like I was lost in the '90s, which I am. So but yeah, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I'm excited about it, and it's a lot of talented people on it, so we're excited.
Nice. That's really cool. And then, how often are you playing pretty consistently as far as shows, or is that kind of on the back burner as you're going through this production process?
So it's been kind of, it's been kind of all over the place because, after when how it is, if you're usually booking out a year ahead when you're a musician.
Yeah.
So that when I kind of quit and just canceled shows, you kind of fall out of grace and lineups and stuff like that too, because, I didn't have a whole lot booked for that following. So I finished the shows that I had booked and the bigger ones that I had to do. And then I've been like, I went and did the Kern Cattle auction out in California, which is their yearly big auction. And
Hmm.
so I went and did that. That was a bigger show. And then, I went out and played a bunch of private events in Montana. I did a wedding in Montana last week. And so I've been picking up gigs here and there. But I really just kind of like, I was given an opportunity to really just get in the studio with something I hadn't been able to do because I got so busy. And I'd never been able just to get in the studio and write. I tried that in the very beginning of my career when all that happened. I signed with Dan Hodges in Nashville, and at that time, it was a publishing deal to where my songs, or he would try to get them to other guys who wanted me to write and stuff like that. But he put me in a room with a bunch of guys in Nashville that were songwriters, and I just was out of place. I didn't. They all had a guitar or keyboard or piano or something that they could, their song, they were trying to tell you what they were doing. And then other guys would start chiming in. They all knew where to go play. And all of a sudden these guys were creating a song while I was like trying to, hum guitar parts to somebody. Just what that Nashville thing where everybody goes and writes these writers. It didn't work for me. I need like a one-on-one thing with the guy who knows how to play guitar and hears music for it to work. So I just tried it and it was so uncomfortable. And I felt so like not good enough to be there that I just said, no, this Nashville thing is not going to work for me. I'm just going to go try to make my way out where I'm at and see what happens, So, so I did that. And so now, it's just, but when the music started and I started playing everywhere, I didn't have a chance to really write. So I've been given this chance to, I wrote for about 4 months straight every day. And I got about 22 or 23 really, really good ones, I think, and probably about 30 or 40 ones. Who knows what's going on with them, but I was able to write for the first time and do nothing else but write. And it was a blessing. So that's what I've been doing and just kind of sporadically picking up shows.
Nice. That's cool. Now, when you're writing, I asked this question the other day when I was talking to somebody, and I got a kind of an interesting response. I'm going to go because when you're writing, do you find that you listen to more music when you're writing or when you're not writing? Like as far as just like recreationally?
So recreationally, I think I find myself listening to more music when I'm writing, for sure, because sometimes I'll hear like something in a song or something and like, oh, that was a cool break. I could hear that. Maybe that's what I'm missing in this song. So I'll always find myself really listening to stuff because, when you're in a song, you're trying to write it, even when you got it finished, you always want to like make some moments or find some things. And sometimes I'll hear those in different songs, and so I'm always listening when I'm writing and then when I'm gigging and I'm like playing 4 nights a week. I'm like driving down the freeway with like it off, just listening to the tire spin, or whatever. I just don't listen to hardly anything. So, yeah, it's weird. I'd never even thought about it till you asked the question, but yeah, for sure when I'm writing and for sure not when I'm playing a lot.
Yeah. Because in my head, it seems like it would make sense either way because it's like I know some musicians they don't want to get influenced by anybody when they're writing, so they'll kind of
Yeah,
tune
yeah,
it back a little bit.
yeah. I do. I want to be influenced. I really do.
Yeah.
Like because I kind of got I think any artist who's writing a song, there's so many songs. It's really hard. Somebody's probably done it already.
Mhm.
If we're being honest, even if you don't know it, even if you
Yeah.
don't know, even if you don't know that it's been done, and you think you're doing it. It's like somebody's done it. Probably
Yeah.
they've been writing music for a long time, and it's there's only so many keys you can go on there, especially in country music. So I think for me, it's like I want to find some stuff to be inspired by. Like, I mean, the song "Pray," for instance, is like I thought I had it all finished, and I thought it was, good, but I was like, I think it needs a moment or something. And the song "Pray" is completely different from Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker. But I was on
Yep.
the way to the studio in California, and Wagon Wheel came on, and I just thought the break at the end of it was just so cool. The way he broke, the bridge went and he broke it down, and there was some
Mhm.
like, I thought if I could create a moment like that and pray, that's what it's missing. So I went there that day. We cut part of the prayer that I say down to give us some more room, and then now there's an electric guitar flying over the top of this
Nice.
moment that was created was because I listened to Wagon Wheel. So I mean, to me, it's like I mean, it doesn't make no damn sense. It shouldn't have been a moment from Wagon Wheel to this song, but it inspired me. I thought that is cool. That's what maybe this needs. So I want to listen and try to learn as much as I can from anybody in any song. I'm not if it sounds like theirs and it's good, I don't care.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what do you, when you do kind of get moments to yourself, what do you like to do out in Arizona, just kind of outside of the music industry?
Yeah, like you gotta go to like probably the river. I grew up on the Colorado River down in Quartzsite. My dad had opened a bar down in Quartzsite, so I was just on the river as a kid. And when I was a kid, we didn't have much to do as far as ride
Mm.
four wheelers and go to the river, find some water, play a sport. There wasn't phones and stuff to do to keep you interested. So we were always doing something. So I found myself at the river all the time. So usually, out here too, you get some free time or whatever. Going out and going to the rivers probably like if I had one thing to do, just probably go out in the water.
Sure. It's probably a nice, refreshing break from that oppressive desert heat.
Man, that is, I mean, even any kind of anything is usually a break when you're out here in the daytime. So
Right, right, right.
yeah.
One thing I did want to talk about because you'd mentioned that when you were younger, your parents were um, very managed bars or own bars,
So
right?
my dad aunt managed and owned bars, and my mom she's a bartender. She's a great personality, and everybody loved her. And she's just bartender her whole life. So
Yeah. Now, when you were hanging around, do you remember? Do you have any like cool stories of musicians that you saw
so
that?
so in,
Yeah.
so in Arizona, back in the day, Tim and Willie, KNIX, this Tim and Willie show was a big
Yeah.
deal. Like they did these big bike runs every year, these huge bike runs, and they'd raise money for cancer and the St. Jude's Hospital. And
Mhm.
so whenever I lived down in Toltec and Eloy Casa Grande area, and my dad ran the Ramada Inn. My mom she bartended there, and they would come through there every year, and everybody get excited about it. I remember one day it's funny too because I was standing next to Tim and Willie in the bathroom at the urinal, and at that time I was young, I was really young, and I was just going to the bathroom next to him, thinking how cool it was, and then to meet Tim Hattrick, for him to give me the KNIX award for that bottle was a long way. So I met them way back in the day, and then I never really met a bunch of country musicians that would come through on that. But I met the dude. If it's probably too old for most people, but One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the big Indian
Mhm.
guy.
Yeah.
So he would come through there, and he drew me a picture on a napkin and took a picture with me. And so throughout that, I met Hulk Hogan through there one time and stuff like that. But no country artist I'd ever met any country artist at all in my whole life, just randomly. And then I've met some like probably a handful of my heroes and become friends with them the last 3 4 years, which is
Nice.
that's still crazy to me. So
That is the cool thing about the music industry is like once you really show that you're like really in it and willing to do whatever it is you got to do to get to where you want to go, it's really easy to make friends and
oh,
keep friends.
yeah, so that's the cool thing about like all the people they're just cool, man. They're just good dudes. They're just good people, and normally they'll help you if they can. I mean, and you try not to like, because you know how hard it is to be a musician, just at all, just to be able to actually do it, to book the gigs, to be able to get people to let you play for any amount of money, and to be able to actually just do it for a living. It's a very, very, very hard thing to do, man.
Mm.
So it's like even when you get around some of these guys that you think got it figured out and like got it all together, some of the biggest names, will tell you like they're still working to work, man, because they got to work. They're
Yeah.
gigging because they need a paycheck. And like some of my heroes, I've sat and told me that over, and I was like, wow, this guy actually has to do this still, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's true. So so I've learned that most everybody that's going to help you, it'll be in a situation where they know you need help, and they're normally going to offer the help before you have to ask for it, because I think everybody's so respectful of each other, not getting into your business or wanting to bother you because they know how bothered they are with their own shit, you know. So
Mhm.
everybody's so respectful, man, and everyone is always willing to lend a hand if they can, or, help if they can. I think it's amazing
Oh
community.
yeah,
So
for sure. I'll share this story really quick because I think you'll really connect with it and kind of attest to the sentiment behind it. I, we were talking before we jumped on here about the live podcast thing that we're doing. So CMA Fest this past year's in June. I was out in Nashville and I was like a couple of months prior, I was trying to book out the show, I was reaching out to my friends that I knew would, if they couldn't do it, they would point me to somebody that could
right,
come on and like, jump on. And a guy that I had had on the podcast like early last year, like I knew him, we knew each other a little bit, but like one podcast, and that was really the only, conversation we had ever had. He reached out to me. He was like, "Hey man, I see what you're doing. I want in." I'm like, "Okay, cool. It's in Nashville. This is the date. This is the time. If we can confirm it and lock it in, cool, great, wonderful. It's locked in." He comes into the show and you could tell he's tired. You could tell he'd been on the road for like probably a month straight at that point.
yeah, 10
And
years look like.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what
And
it always looks like.
he comes in and he's like, "Hey man, glad to be here, yada yada." And throughout the like the podcast, because we had a series of musicians come on, and I like he came in, did his thing, and we were talking, and I was like, "Yeah, man. So what are you kind of working on right now? What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I just came in from Panama City Beach last night, and I'm going down to Destin, Florida on Friday." And this was like on a Wednesday, and I was like, "Wait a minute. So you drove up from Florida just to go back to Florida to do this show?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. I want to. I hadn't played Nashville all year. I wanted to play Nashville. You're a cool dude. I
Yeah,
figured I'd come up and just kind of hang out." And I'm like,
it's cool.
"Well, shit, man. I wish I was like." And I didn't say this out loud because it's none of the audience's business, like the back end of stuff. But it's like, man, I wish I was like paying you or something because like I couldn't afford to pay no one. And
Right.
they were just kind of all coming up out of the kindness of their heart and, just kind of do something different. And it's like, afterwards, I was like, man, I wish you would have told me. I would have told you, man, don't worry about it. Don't drive
Right.
16 hours out of your way just to come do
Right.
this show. And he's like, dude, no, you're a cool dude. This show was
Yeah.
fun. I enjoyed
That's
it. So
awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, listen, I think that will give you they'll show you, it'll probably motivate you and make you feel good about what you're doing, because I mean, you know how hard it is too. And I immediately noticed, when I watched her, when I went and looked at your stuff and seen, I was like, oh, this guy's a hustler. He's grinding, he's a grinder. I think another person who has to do that can see immediately whether you're grinding or what you're doing. And like
yeah,
I could just tell immediately, like, this dude is just, he's out there trying to get it. He's trying to knock down every door, shake every hand. He's trying to just, get out in front of something, man. So
yeah,
yeah, congratulations to you, man. And you get to kind of see the people in the country music world.
oh yeah,
They're pretty amazing. They're pretty fantastic.
yeah. It's really cool, and it's like now I've got the confidence where it's like, okay, 2020. I want to try and do something this year, but like you had mentioned, venues are so far booked out right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Like I
like
said, you decide to come to after Tucson. If you
yeah,
decide to come down to this, I can help you, man. I'll help you get into the best. I think the best bar in the world. Which is Handlebar J. So
we'll definitely have an offline on that one. So
yeah, just let me
um,
know.
yeah. But I really appreciate your time. If anybody wants to check out your music, the upcoming album that's coming in 2025, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
Just wherever you stream music at, Josh Scott Music. So just my name and music at the end of it. Website's joshscottmusic.com, at Josh Scott Music on Instagram. Go get your hat, new pray hat right here. I mean, if you want to support country music and God, you can go get your pray hat and pray shirt. And all my music and my story is documented on my site. And we got 7 or 8 songs out right now, and check them out and share them with a friend and have them share with a friend, even if they don't like country music. That's how independent artists work, just try to share and try to listen. And, anytime you get the chance to go check something out, a new song, just share it with a friend. That's all I'd ask. And, if you like real country music and, real stories and, no, you're right, man. Go check it out and support it. I appreciate it very much.
So awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later.
Tom, congrats, man. Good luck. Thank you.